Okay, so we just watched the new pilot for the independently created show Hazbin Hotel. Uh, Judah here has never seen it. I've watched it about 10 times now since it came out, mostly because of the little details that it all has in the animation, which is incredible considering it's a completely independently created show. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Well, it's very much like Invader Zim meets Hellboy, storyline kind of wise. The animations reminds me a lot of Invader Zim. So the story reminds me of like Hellboy comics and all of that, the whole demon redemption thing and all of that. So it'd be interesting to see where it goes if it gets picked up.
What'd you think of the characters?
They're interesting.
You sound hesitant.
Well, no, they're interesting. I don't know, they're portraying them as like damned souls, but they're all demons as well, which is like two different distinctions I'd make.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this is like the quadrant of hell that's like just for the demons. It seems like more than, this, because they're dealing with overpopulation and all this. And I'm like, okay, condemned soul wouldn't be considered a demon. They'd be, a condemned soul.
Where did I lean back from the table? Because by hitting the table, you're no. I know.
Sorry.
I'm sorry too, sir. Get on that far back. Okay, good. So the idea, from what I've read up, is that all demons in this version of hell are sinners.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they are.
Yeah.
And so every single person that you see, except for Charlie, and I think Lucifer, who you don't see in this episode, are the only people who aren't originally from Earth. Who are living people. And they actually already revealed some of the backstories for some of the characters, which is interesting. Angel Dust, the drag queen porn star, is from the 1940s, I believe, and was the son of a mobster family.
Okay.
Who got gunned down, I guess, and was also kind of a sexual deviant. I don't know anything about Vaggie's character, but she died in 2014, I think is what the...
Was it Vaggie or Maggie?
Vaggie, with a V. I'm not entirely sure if that's a sex joke or not. Then Alistair is a radio host from around the time of the
Great Depression.
Yep. Who became a serial killer afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Which is possibly why he has so much power, because he murdered so many people. And then Serpentius, shortened to Serpent.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Is from the 1800s and was an inventor of sorts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so which
that makes sense why the machines and everything.
And then Cherry Bomb, don't know anything about her, don't know anything about Nifty or Husk. Everyone just calls him Husk, but Alistair calls him Husker, so I'm not totally sure what his name is. So I take it it's not very biblical overall?
No, I mean, it's a cartoon fantasy, so I wouldn't say any of them are really biblical. So, but I mean, it's entertainment. It's not meant to be. So I'm not gonna get mad at that. So,
do you think some people would get very mad about the show if it became mainstream?
Oh, I would believe so. I mean, it's dealing with hell, demons, sin, all that kind of stuff, and so you have a lot of just things that people wouldn't agree with necessarily right off the bat. And, just even people who see a trailer or a picture and they make a whole deal about it. And there's just, there would be.
I'm not even religious, and there were things when I was first watching is like, oh, that like makes me uncomfortable. I'm not sure how I feel about that. And online, there's a lot of, especially in some LGBT circles, or queer circles, depending on like how you define the whole group. I've heard it referred to as both ways. They're very angry about Angel Dust in some ways, because they say, oh, the joke is that he's just gay and a drag queen, which is not necessarily true. So, but yeah, so because the joke is that he's just a terrible person who happens to be gay.
Yeah. Look, everyone's gonna get offended over everything eventually, and I don't think the creators of this probably are trying to make a point other than let's tell a story.
Yeah.
They have. So, I mean, it's one episode. You can't really judge how they're going to portray a character throughout an entire storyline. So, I mean, you don't know.
Yeah. What'd you think of Alistair, the radio demon?
He's interesting. He's very charismatic, which fits the radio style.
Mm-hmm.
There's, something more sinister to him that, everyone's aware of and all of that. So, it's interesting because, I didn't know his backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up on that. And, if they're going with this line of logic of what you did in your past life, like the number of sins equates to your power.
I'm not sure if they're going with that. That's just my theory on it.
Yeah, but it makes sense. Like if he came in and was more powerful than other people there already, it would just be interesting to see how his storyline progresses because, they all fear and revere him.
Yeah.
So,
what'd you think of the news section? The newscasters.
It's very interesting. It kind of reminds me of the newscasting section on Futurama, just with how funny it is.
Oh yeah,
and the quick little jabs and everything. But it was interesting. I didn't like the anchor, the main anchor.
Yeah.
Killjoy. She was a Killjoy. Which I mean, she's a good character. I just don't like. It just didn't. As a character, I just don't like her.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's well done, and that's why I don't like her.
Oh, okay. That's.
It's not a. You're not supposed to like her. Like that's the thing.
Would you want to see more of those news segments in the following episodes?
I would. Not as long though.
Yeah.
I think quick sound bites and like passing on TV, like in the background, stuff like that. The gas mask guy, he intrigued me. He's interesting.
I think he's a World War. I'm none of this.
Yeah, I don't probably know. World War One.
Yeah, World War II trench guy who got horribly murdered. Probably. Yeah.
So.
What else? Is there anything else? Oh yeah. Did you feel like there were too many sound effects?
There were a lot. Well, there were a lot that I noticed with the radio guy, but I thought they were all fitting.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fine line. They had a lot, but it was in the right places at the right time, and it worked. But it could be overpowered.
Yeah.
In certain spots. So, but I think it worked.
Okay. Because I've heard some people say that just throughout the entire episode, there's too many sound effects. But that was actually a positive for me. It was like, I've never have so much sensory overload in the best way possible. So, would you want to give it a rating out of 10, or do you not believe in that kind of stuff for yourself?
For a first episode and nothing else, like I can't watch a season and be like, oh, I rate it out of this. I'm not going to, because if this ended up being the only thing ever, then I would rate it. But since they want to make it more and develop a storyline with it, I wouldn't want to give it a individual rating yet.
Got it. What type of people would you recommend this to, or what type of people would you not recommend this to then?
I don't know. If you are just interested in, interesting storylines, I guess, watch it. If you're going to get offended by everything, don't. So.
I'd recommend it to basically anyone who likes good animation. that's the biggest thing that really sold this for me was
Mhm.
the quality of the animation.
Yeah, it was good.
Especially since it was all just funded through
Mhm.
Patreon.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, okay, I think there might have been Kickstarter too, but just 2 years of development with independent creators.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the reason why, the animation style, it reminds me a lot of Invader Zim. So if you like Invader Zim animation,
yeah,
so
a lot more fast paced and
yeah, it is.
not as disturbing as Invader Zim. At least old school Invader Zim. Enter the Florpus looks a bit more like this in some ways.
Yeah, I would agree. This is more Enter the Florpus style.
All right, so now I'm going to ask you a few questions that I have, some of which I already know the answers to. I'm asking you from the perspective of what would a non-religious person want to know about you, and then what would a religious person want to know about me?
Mm-hmm.
I guess is how we're going to do this. So my first question is, what do you think of the dichotomy between an all-powerful God and an all-good one? Have you ever heard that comparison before?
Yeah, yes, I have. So you're kind of asking the range of an all-powerful and an all-good God.
Well, kind of like
coexisting at the same time.
Yeah, so like if like the argument that is, if God is all powerful, then he can't be good because we have all this evil in the world.
Yeah.
And if he's all good, then he can't be all powerful because we have all this evil in the world. Like what's your take on that?
Well, I do think he can. Wow. I do think he is all powerful and all good. And there's, for me, when I look at it, the Bible, and read that kind of stuff, there's really no distinction between the two of the fact, you mentioned, the evil. So if God's all powerful, why doesn't he just get rid of evil? Because he can do that.
Yeah.
So, and he can. And that's the thing. Like, he can do that. And it's not that he doesn't want to. He is. And there's an old concept that we've lost in America and the West, 21st century, of covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So covenant is, a lot of people think, there's, we get it from a handshake. Like, that's probably what it's devolved into, is a handshake. And it's not a contract. A contract is completely separate and different, I'd say. So a covenant is an agreement made between two parties that you have to honor something. So it sounds like a contract, but it's not.
I'm going to guess you mean like both parties have to fulfill an end of the contract?
Yes. Basically, well,
they're on equal footing, essentially.
No. So a covenant is always a stronger force coming to a weaker one and basically making an agreement with him.
Wait, how's that different than a contract?
So this is why I wanted the questions before, so I could have thought out answers.
Oh. Well, I mean, people are going to ask you this.
I know. Trying to remember how it was explained to me.
You want to swing back around and maybe you can ask me a question?
No. I'm just going to bubble through this one. All right. So, an all-powerful God, why is there evil? I guess the simple answer is that I don't know, from my perspective, it was a choice for mankind to allow evil in.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have the whole story in Genesis where
Literal, not literal, or not literal?
um well, okay, I know you're asking the literal part for more or less the 6 days thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about in the garden.
Okay.
So in the garden story, that's a totally different story.
Got it.
I mean, part of the same story, but I'd have a more different answer. So in the garden, you have the serpent appear, you know, eat of the tree. You know, God has the 2 trees in there. And it's very much, you know, a choice. You had Eve, who was deceived, which is not a sin. A lot of Christians I know that kind of push the whole. This is a totally different point, but push the whole kind of, you know, women are subservient to men, and
that's one of my questions later on.
Every time in the Bible that it talks about Eve, it always says that she was deceived and Adam was the one that sinned. And I've heard so many times Christians say, well, Eve sinned too. Nope, she didn't. It wasn't.
But wasn't she punished alongside him?
Because of Adam's sin.
Wait. So she didn't sin. She got roped in with him, though.
Because she was from him. We'll get into it later.
Okay.
All right, so back to the point. So you have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay. Mm-hmm. First of all, there's nothing unique about this tree. It is a tree. It's... Okay, like, God didn't design a special tree that said, this is the knowledge of good and evil. Like, it's not a magical fruit that you ate or vegetable that grew on it, and you eat it, and all of a sudden you know all this knowledge. The part that comes for the knowledge of good and evil is the command. Do not eat of it. So if they would have not eaten of the tree, they would have passed. They would have known what good was. Mm-hmm. Immediately they would have known what good was. Mm-hmm. So, but because they ate and they knew sin, because they disobeyed, they now know what evil is.
Wait, that sounds like God set them up to fail, though.
No.
No?
It's free will. You have a choice.
You were going to say that at some point.
So, you can't have... you have a choice. If God made us without a choice, we would be like robots because we would have known nothing else.
And what's wrong with that?
Well, would you like to be a robot?
I mean, if we don't have any other concept of anything else.
Yeah, but does that mean that we are now freely choosing to love him? Or are we just loving him because that's what we do? It's not a choice. It's we just do that because we do that.
Yeah, but whenever I hear that argument, I fail to see, like, it doesn't really address the problem, though. It's like, so it's just by God, that's God's standard, what he thinks is good, is giving something free will, essentially.
Well, I don't think that good was free will. It's, he wanted to give us the choice to use our free will. And the hope was, if they choose good, which is not eating, mm-hmm. then they have exercised their right as free will, and they have made the conscious choice to continue to follow and obey.
But there's one problem with that. There is only one thing you can't do. And so Adam and Eve are like, they were immortal at that time, right?
Yes, I would agree with that.
So eventually, it's kind of like you keep doing good until you do bad. If you can only do good, like, you have to actively resist not eating the tree. You have to actively not disobey the order.
Okay, so I'm going to say this. We're thinking of this story as of if we were there and how our mindset is now, post-fall.
Okay.
So I would argue that if they had chose not to eat, that they would have never been tempted again. Because they were there for who knows how long before the serpent showed up.
Okay.
Never touched it. Never ate of it. So you had anywhere from, if you take the literal account, time frame, a few weeks to a month to a year. Like, you're talking very short amount of time to could be anywhere from 50 to X number of years. You can put whatever number you want.
Yeah.
And I lean towards more longer time because of other verses in the Bible that talk about Lucifer and his duties within creation before he fell. It doesn't make it sound like he just all of a sudden, God created everything and then Lucifer was like, sin. It was, oh yeah, okay, there's other stuff. But,
okay.
So they lived with the tree before the serpent ever showed up.
So you're kind of saying basically, once they resisted the serpent once,
yeah,
it just wouldn't be a problem anymore at all.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been.
Satan would just instantly be defeated right then and there.
Yeah,
and
because
happened again.
Yeah, he was defeated. So this goes to a little bit of like Lucifer. Lucifer was the archangel of archangels.
Yeah,
he was in charge of every angel. He was also in charge. He was the archangel of the garden. That's why he's in the garden.
Oh, really?
Yes. He was placed over creation. And so his job, it talks about it in Ezekiel, his job was basically to go out into creation and collect the worship of the universe and bring it back to God.
Okay.
So, and that's why you get like, music is of the devil. That's where that comes from, is because he has been described as, when he walked, his wings rubbed and you could hear music pouring out of him. And it talks about that in Ezekiel. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Because he collected all of it and then he brought it to God. It just poured out of him. He was the container of it, basically. So you have in the garden this is the funny thing. When you read the story, where is Eve and the serpent?
I always assumed at like the base of the tree.
Yes. Okay. They are at the tree. She's right next to the tree. Never been tempted. Might have been her favorite place to just sit and relax. We don't know. And depending on your editor's choice of translation, and their view of how they want to skew the Bible,
yeah,
Adam is either sitting right there next to her or he's off somewhere else in the garden.
I always assumed off somewhere else.
Yeah. There are a few that say that he was right there because it says she turned to him and that. So, so back to Satan or Lucifer. So he was cast out of heaven and defeated, never to enter back in. So where does he go?
Well, where he's lived.
To the last place that he has domain in, the garden. That's why he's in the garden.
Okay.
So if he was defeated by Adam and Eve in the garden, well, he had nothing. I don't want to say he'd cease to exist, but he would be...
He would be like basically a phantom that can't touch or do anything.
Yeah. He would just be worthless. Yeah.
Okay.
So...
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I don't think like... that... Yeah. So...
There are other questions and other like things I have about, but I don't want to delve into it.
Yeah.
Then it goes into territory where it's just purely hypothetical.
Yeah.
Already we've dipped into a lot of hypothetical things.
It
of
is.
like you'd have to literally know the mind of God, whether he exists or not, in order to.
Yeah, and like a lot of this is just from just reading and the first 3 chapters of Genesis I have read maybe thousands of times, and studied it a lot. Don't know why. I just love it.
This is a creation story.
Yeah, it is. And
bitches love creation stories.
So there's a lot of like good stuff in there, especially for knowing like who you are. Like Christians like to talk a lot about identity. And what's your identity in Christ? You're a child of God. You're a prince and an heir to the throne. Blah 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 blah. There's all that stuff, and they're good things that they talk about, but nobody ever goes back to the origin. Where did you start? And I've always been intrigued by that, because I'm like, can you actually know who you fully are if you don't know where you came from? If you only know half the story or 3/4 of it, and you don't understand this part, do you fully know? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I've liked Genesis so much, is, how did this all start? And what does that make for me today? Like, how does that affect me? So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, do you have any questions?
Not really. I'll ask you the same one. Do you think there is a distinction between being all powerful and all good?
I don't know. Because the argument is basically like I kind of see it as the non-religious version of Pascal's wager, where that was weird. Sorry, the recording kind of freaked out for a second on my end here. But yeah, so it kind of feels like the non-religious version of Pascal's wager, because it does kind of make sense. But I can also see where you could poke a few holes in it. Kind of like you kind of poked holes in it. You didn't refute it, I wouldn't say, because again, like it dips into hypotheticals and things like that.
Well, yeah, and I might not have, because I don't mean to poke holes in it, because I don't think you can poke holes in it.
Yeah,
and there is
both sides delve into the hypothetical realm.
Yeah, and you kind of have to. Well, you don't have to, but then you get a skewed version of it.
Yeah,
I think so.
And yeah, so I if it was the purely biblical version of the God, literally kind of way, I would say God is not very good in the traditional way many people read the story. I would not say God is good in the traditional version of the story.
What would you define the traditional version as?
Well, just kind of the God who made creation, made it so, knew that Adam and Eve were going to completely fuck everything up, and then left the door wide open for them to do it, and then punish them for it. It's kind of like, don't put your hand on the stove, or like you say, don't put your hand on the stove to your child, and you just walk out of the room knowing that they're going to eventually put their hand on the stove because they're bored. And then you get really angry at them and throw them out of the house when they're still like 3. It kind of feels like that in some ways.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of the version, yeah. That's
I mean, you're missing somebody there tempting.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
Child,
that's true as well. But then at the same time, you punish the tempter. You don't throw them both out.
Well, I mean, they all got punished. So,
that's what I mean. They all got punished.
Yeah.
But your version makes a little bit more sense, but I'm sure people in the comments will just go ham on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, have fun. You're probably not going to sway me.
And it's not about that. This is kind of about just like hearing different perspectives.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're the dank Christian memes of YouTube, even though we just got started.
Woohoo.
So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay.
I'll move on to my next question. So, what's your opinion on atheism? What do you think atheists believe?
All right. Okay, well, that's two questions. So the first question was, what do I think of atheism?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, atheism is, well, I guess I'm going to answer both with this. So, kind of how I view atheism is the fact that you just don't believe in a higher power,
mm-hmm.
and that there's, it's all on you as a person, it's on you as a species, as humanity, to solve the problems, get results, do things,
Mm-hmm.
and you get one life and that's it, and it's done. Which, that second part, you get one life and it's done, is good common ground there.
Yeah.
But, there's nothing more, really. There's a quote that Ricky Gervais says, I think he did it in one of his comedy specials. He was like, he named how many deities there were throughout history and today, and it was like 2,700 something. And he's like, I love how I'm being called an atheist for not believing in one of them when I don't believe in any of them. And so it's kind of true. It's like, I would be considered an atheist to a Hindu,
mm-hmm.
because I don't believe in their gods. So, I think, that's a choice. Like, you have that ability to choose what you want to believe. Do I agree with it? No. Am I going to be all uptight and try and prove you wrong? No. I'll love you. I'll have conversations with you, and I'll share what I believe. And if you have questions, try and answer them best that I can. So.
Okay. So, what is your kind of question back?
So I would say, what is your perspective on and I'll simplify this to the American church, of how they deal with people who are atheists, and how they deal with trying to retort what atheism believes.
American Christianity is a complete joke, needs to be burned to the ground and disappear from the face of the earth for a good little while, and then try to come back and see if it actually catches on, or if it was just a fad like how I think it is. Does that answer your question?
I mean, it answers some of it.
The way they treat atheism here in America, and this is the thing that actually got me converted off of Christianity, was how they treated atheists and tried to refute them. Because so many Christians are just dicks. They're such assholes to people. And the arguments they use are, at least, again, mainstream American Christianity.
Yeah, we're talking generalization.
Yeah.
How the media sees them, how the atheist community sees them.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, specific, like, oh, this church down the street, how do you think they feel about it?
Yeah,
no, it's in general how the view is. But,
well, to get a little specific, stuff like what Ken Ham peddles, and a few others, it's so laughable when you actually get down to basic ideology understanding, where it doesn't follow basic science. It is using nothing but a God of the gaps argument to justify its own existence in many ways. Or it just says, like, oh, we don't understand this, obviously God did it. And it shuns anyone who doesn't believe. Like, people talk about cancel culture nowadays, but like, Christianity was the original cancel culture, and 100%. Okay, well, the original widespread cancel culture.
Mhm.
Many religions practice cancel culture in their own way.
Mhm.
Atheism now practices cancel culture as an add-on to itself. But in church to this day, if you voice a different opinion in church, you can still be Christian too, and you are canceled according to American Christianity. And it's disgusting. I'm being very, very harsh and sound very, very angry right now.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with some of that. It's, in my own personal life and people I've known, you do believe something different that they don't agree with. You're shunned, you're ostracized, you're not a part of the group as much. Where I currently / formerly work, depending on when this comes out, I've been... Be
careful how specific you get here.
I've been, it's a Christian ministry, and if they probably would have known the church I grew up in and some of the things I believed that have nothing to do with, salvation and following God or Jesus, they probably wouldn't have hired me.
Really?
Because they don't agree with that. And
isn't that illegal?
No, I wouldn't say that, because they'd probably find something different to say. But just from inner workings and that, it's, as a business, they get they know their clientele well, and some of them, they're like, maybe in a few years we won't, have them come back or something like that. So, it is prevalent. I know a lot of denominations of American Christianity, if you ever get a divorce, you are no longer allowed to do anything in ministry.
Which is funny, because a lot of those same sects love Ronald Reagan, who was the guy who made divorce really easy to do.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, they don't even care if, like, the circumstances. Like, even if it's abuse. Yeah, even if it's abuse. Well, most of those churches that don't let you do that don't believe women can hold positions, so they wouldn't care.
Yeesh.
But on the flip side, there is where if a man marries a woman who was previously divorced, in a church that believes that, his working in the ministry gets hindered because he has a divorced wife.
So weird.
It is. And men who get cleaned out, their bank account cleaned out, and the wife leaves, runs off with a younger man, it's their fault still. They should have been the one to hold the marriage together. And it's like, we're all human. We all, mess up. And, I love the example, because a lot of them then turn on Sunday and say, the Bible's full of people that were mess-ups and screw-ups, and look how Jesus used them. And then in their inner workings, they don't use people who are messed up or screwed up. So it's just funny. Stuff like that.
Funny is a funny word to describe this situation.
I use funny as in it's just ridiculously how stupid it is when you think it through. So, I love how I'm hogging your questions. I'm asking you.
I don't have a problem with it, but I'm worried that some of the viewers will have a problem with saying like, "Oh, welcome to the Judah monologue." So I really do think that Christianity, mainstream American Christianity, Catholicism definitely, for mostly because of how institutionalized it is.
Yeah, that's if you put it in Christianity.
Yeah, and Mormonism Just
if you put it in.
Yeah, Mormonism, because some people do consider that.
Yeah.
I don't consider that. I'm non-religious because I think it is too different, and I do consider it a big ripoff of Christianity, like how Jehovah Witnesses are too. I think we just pissed off some people. If anyone watches this, but yeah,
welcome to where we pick and choose which denominations we like.
Well, so, but like, I think Christianity in general, I think all of it needs to just disappear for a little while and then see if it can naturally regrow itself like how it did under the Roman Empire. I want to see if it can actually stand up to modern times. I know that's never going to happen, but I would love to see like what would happen if it had to restart from scratch and try to spread believers again. Because part of me thinks because like I think that would be kind of a determiner of like, is this actually divine or not? Can this thing be completely wiped out and still regrow? And then to delve more into the whole why do I really, really dislike Catholicism and Mormonism, it's because they have direct lines of communication with the God they believe in, and they're still not just screw ups, but like actively evils in many ways. The Mormon Church is so for those who don't know, we're in Utah. We live in Utah, and the Mormon Church.
I'm sorry, the holy country of Deseret. Let's
I don't give a shit, Josh. Whatever. I'll cut that out.
I'll remind you there.
Nice. But so they have a stranglehold on our politics here.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, well, but then again, Christianity in general has had a stranglehold. Yeah. Which is another reason why I want it gone.
They don't have representatives that sit in on Senate and council meetings in the state.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm calling you out, church.
And so, yeah, they like Prop 2 got...
Oh my god.
I couldn't believe that. And
they overturned every prop last vote.
That's amazing to me. It's so yeah. Like, it's such a blatant disregard for individual rights here in this state and country. Yeah. And should be really, really scrutinized, but
nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it except for people who are too small to do anything.
Yeah. And it's, for those of you who don't know, we had 4 props. Prop 1 dealt with money allocation to schools and roads. That failed. Jesus. That was overturned, and all the money was directed towards the wonderful people at UDOT, and almost none went to the schools. Prop 2 was medicalized marijuana, and that passed and got overturned because
apparently you can hold votes without public knowledge and just change things without public consent. Yep. You know what that's called? I call that political rape. Okay, no, that's too strong.
Yep. Prop 3 was an increase to the state Medicaid.
Medicaid or Medicare?
I don't remember which one's federal, which one's state. Whichever one it is, they overturned that and allocated the money elsewhere. Prop 4 was a independent group that would redistrict the state for votes. Yeah. So you would have independent people, not this Congress and Senate of the state, picking where the borders start and end. It would have been an independent. It passed. Like 75%. Yeah. And they have thrown it out saying that it's too hard to do and that it's better left to the Senate and congressmen of the state. And it's like, no, that's why we wanted it.
Yeah. Okay. These are the same assholes who had Orrin Hatch in for an eternity. The son of a bitch didn't even retire, or he retired. He didn't get voted out like he should have. Oh, I really, really hate the Mormon Church. I don't mind Mormons. Most of my family are Mormons, but god damn it, I hate their church. They have so much power and money. Same thing with the Catholics.
And how do they use it? Well, if you come to church, we'll help you.
Yeah. Good luck if you're not in the in-group. Oh, good luck if you have a drug addiction. Good luck if you're a homeless person, because guess what? We're not going to help you. Yeah. We don't want you to soil our weirdly expensive wards and temples and all this stupid stuff. We got to have more money for our golden statues and statues of Joseph Smith made of black iron and Temple Square. Jesus, that's creepy.
And building more temples. The state already has like 10 temples, and we're adding another 5 in the next 5 years.
We're really bashing on Mormons right now.
Yeah,
it's only because we've been around them so much.
We live here. We grew up here. We could talk about this for hours.
The more you grow up here, the more you realize how much you will not have friends and how much you will not have a vote.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bitterness that comes from just a lack of control. Because we do not have control with who we can make friends with and who we can date and who we can talk to and who we can form friend groups with and all this stuff and who we can even vote for. Thanks, Obama. Whose question is it next?
I think it's yours to me.
Okay.
I have no idea.
All right. Is America exceptional?
Ooh. All right. I am thankful to be living in America. I'll say that first. I love the country that I've grown up in, and I am very thankful for the people who protect it and serve it, not only in the military, but also, police, firefighters, all of that. So service people. I'm very thankful for that. Do I think any nation on earth, not just America, is exceptional? No, I don't. And, there's kind of to that is the whole, it's a nation ran by people. There's nothing, divine about it. Like everyone, screams we're a Judeo-Christian nation. Well, no.
But the Constitution was inspired by God.
Yeah, no. It was inspired by people who knew their history, knew past governments well enough to know that they didn't want that. And they wrote a document to reflect that. Most of them were Freemasons. I don't know where I would put Freemasonry as a religion.
Thomas Jefferson didn't even believe in the miracles. He wrote his own Bible.
Yeah, he wrote his own
cut out
Bible.
all of the miracles.
So
Brent Franklin was a very devious man. We'll put it that way.
Let's just say there was a trip in France, and 100 people later,
that guy knew how to insert things. Too much. Too much. I'm sorry. Right, so
once that key got electrified on that kite, it unlocked a lot of stuff. So yeah, is America exceptional? No. Do I think America has been good in some aspects for other nations in the world? Yes. But peddling American exceptionalism, I don't agree with. Also, I don't agree with the fact that we're a rotten, horrible, needs to get rid of country. Like,
I do think
there's good and there's bad to every nation, every political system, and it's just trying to figure out what the best one is for people.
Can I hop in just a little bit? So I wanted to jump off of the part where you said, like, I don't think America's that bad either. And I actually, thinking about it, I agree with you. I think the big problem and the reason why people are like, America needs to go down for a little while, and why I do agree with that group a lot more, is not because America is that much worse than a lot of other nations. It's the fact they have so much power. America has way too much power for what it is. People like my grandparents and people you and I know think that America is, the world police. Well, I consider them more like the world bully, where they just use the word police thing as a justification for why they're allowed to just meddle in other people's affairs. I do feel like we need to strip down our military down to a reasonable degree, because other nations are not out to destroy America. And the ones that are only out to make it so we're not a threat to them anymore. It's like with the Iran deal, or Kim Jong-un like trying to have any type of nuclear energy or weapons. It's not a threat against us. Like we boast about our military and say, well, we have it as a deterrent. And so they're like, hey, can we have deterrents? No, you'll use them against us. It's like, well, not necessarily. They're using them because we have, there was one guy, what was it? Was it in Kuwait? Shoot, I might have been Kuwait. Crap, I can't remember the history of it. There was one guy that we actually came up to him. He immediately disarmed himself of all weapons and just said, don't topple me. And we were like, cool. And we toppled them anyway. And so, of course, like people right now are talking about like this whole thing with the Kurds and all this stuff saying, oh, America's lost its honor. No, we lost our honor a long time ago because we keep putting our fingers in the oil pools.
Well, and I find it funny, correct me if I'm wrong, how I understood it, we withdrew our troops from Turkey.
We withdrew our troops from the northern part of, not Turkey, from Syria.
Syria.
We're still in Syria.
Yeah, we're still in Syria, but the plan has started to bring them back home. But well, okay, here's the thing. And this is what I find so interesting about politics is one side yells, get out, get out, get out. And both then we sides start, are yelling. Both are. So now we're getting out. Why are you leaving? And the rhetoric has changed. And it's like, it's a tough spot to be in because we put ourselves in this tough spot. And it's now how you get it out.
Illegally, by the way. We violated both U.S. and international law with a lot of these wars.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody cares. Because America is great because America's good.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I do think our nation is better in some aspects of, one of the first ones you have is freedom of press.
Like,
the First Amendment alone, you could say
it's the coolest shit.
Yeah,
that alone makes it so I still like this country over a lot of other ones.
You have like other democratic nations like England, the media, you can get slapped with a D notice on a story, and you are not allowed to report. Like you have to. It's controlled by the government. Where here, there's kind of a back and forth of, the government's like, hey, we don't want you releasing too much information. And then it's kind of really up to the person who's printing to choose to listen or not.
And that goes into another problem that's come up recently. I'm a big believer that big business needs to be broken up now. And this goes for news organizations. I feel like news organizations have become. I'm a strong believer that if you let a business get big enough, it will be just as inefficient and just as corrupt as a government is, like without exception. And right now we have news organizations that, like, for crying out loud, CNN gets to have CNN, NBC News, and a few others. They get to have total control of the debate format for our elections, which is insane when you think about it. And they get to decide, like, oh, this will be damaging to either our brand or a brand that is sponsoring us. So we're not going to print the story. In fact, we're going to block the hell out of it.
Yeah. And you have the two big powerhouses of news, CNN and Fox News.
Yeah.
And I think those two alone, with the fact that with how big they are, you see them moving more and more and more to their side that they were once leaning towards. And because I don't want to say it, like Fox News started off as a far right wing news outlet, and I don't want to say CNN started out as a far left wing. They started off, just past center on their side. But the bigger they got, the more they fight. The more they fight, the more they have to get airtime and their stuff out there. So they're just moving more and more and more towards their side because there's nobody else there that has the power or has the airtime or the amount of resources to get in the middle of it and introduce something different.
I actually argue the opposite. I think they've started drifting a bit, but I think now I kind of think that time to go Alex Jones on you fools a little bit. I don't think they ever had any real ideology behind them.
I don't either.
It was just about ratings.
Mm-hmm.
They just did whatever they could.
Yeah.
And I think now they've reached their edge.
Mm-hmm.
They can't go any more far left or any
Mm-hmm.
more far right. That's what the independent guys like Alex Jones and guys like Kyle Kalinske and the Young Turks are for now. They go the extra distance for the right or left. While now the Fox News and CNN guys are like, oh, we can't go any further else. Our advertisers are going to start pulling out. We can't advocate for Medicare for all. We can't advocate for an ethno-state. Not that I'm comparing the two.
Yeah. It's just examples.
Yeah. We can't go any further without losing our funding, which is really disgusting in its own way. And so I'd say like now they're like might even come back together now to try and please their advertisers.
Yeah. And you might be right. I don't see that happening because I think the more and more companies become political, the more and more they're going to side with that. So if you have a right-winged company saying to Fox News that starts drifting back towards center, we're going to pull if you do this. Well, now they're going to be locked in because they need that ad revenue.
But that's the thing. Have you listened to much Fox News or conservative radio?
Not in like 8 years.
A lot of their advertisers are stuff like Folgers and like cybersecurity firms and things like that. Like nothing super and like lawyer and ambulance chaser type guys. I haven't seen much like actual far right groups.
Well, I don't mean far right advertisements. I mean companies that are run by people who are far right and that kind of stuff.
But even then, like those companies know that they can't go like that's the thing about a corporation. They can't go that far away from what their base wants unless they have a monopoly like Google or Facebook does. They can't go that far off or else people just stop buying from them over that ideology. So I think even then, like that's where corporations, when they're smaller like that, they do work better than government in some ways because their ideology has to follow what the general market wants. But then if you got something like Facebook and Google, who gives a shit what people think? We can just jack up prices, put down advertisements, take away ad revenue from people, and what are people going to do? Not watch YouTube anymore?
Yeah. There's nothing to compete because of any service that comes up against them, they buy out.
Yeah.
And
Amazon is notorious for this.
And if they can't buy them out, they put them out of business otherwise, like Amazon. If they can't buy a company, they lower their prices to beat that company until they go bankrupt and either have to sell to Amazon, their business, or they just close outright and then Amazon's prices return to normal.
Yep. Or go up even higher.
Or even higher, since they don't have competition now.
Yep.
So
free market is dead.
There's a lot of that stuff, but I don't look at. I think more and more businesses are going to become polarized because I am starting to think that we're ran more by companies as a government than as a people, like as actual thing. Like you can vote for your governor, your senator, your congressman, and they have ideas, they have stuff, but then they want to run for re-election. They need money for campaigning, or they need to partner with a business.
So this is where campaign reform needs to come in.
Yeah, but also like partnering with businesses for law changes. Like, I have no examples for this, so I'm going to make up so you need a new money for a financial district, and there's, let's say, Google's like, hey, I'm interested in this. We can put in Google Fiber. We'd like this and all that. And then Amazon's like, why don't we put a distribution center in there so therefore the people in the surrounding cities...
Isn't this where subsidies come in and stuff like that?
I would believe so. And so you have the government helping out, and then you have companies helping out.
Yeah.
But now you're in bed with those companies with this project. And so let's say you zoned it a certain way where there was going to be a park. There's like
a good park that would help the community and all
like
that stuff.
55% of the zoning. So this whole area is a park. Well, now Google and Amazon don't like that. They want it to be 25 to 35%. And they threaten to pull out their money.
Yeah.
And so now, and that's a small like control issue, I'd say. But you can just see how that could escalate the higher up you get. And especially when it does come to campaigning. You have the money, the ads, we'll run yours if you do these things with us, as you do a tax break bill for us, or all this kind of stuff.
And that kind of reminds me of something else. I talked with my grandpa about a week ago for just like 6 hours straight, just arguing with him about stuff. And I realized something I was just talking to him. The reason why my grandpa hates the government so much is because they constantly get in his way with regulations, which are there for sometimes a good reasons, usually a good reason, sometimes not a good reason. Meanwhile, me as a consumer and just an average younger citizen, my life is I hardly ever get run-ins with the government. Hardly ever.
Yeah.
Except for maybe talking to a policeman, not speeding, maybe getting a ticket, and just doing like general things that just help people in general. Where I run into problems that make me frustrated is always with a corporation. Whether it be trying, like right now, like I tried to get I got a YouTube channel off the ground a week or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks? Wow. And the worst part was, and the biggest thing that stood in my way to do that was the fact that Adobe doesn't allow you to own their software anymore, which pisses me off. And which is fine. It has its own benefits. But then, like, if I have problems with certain things with a corporation, I have like an account problem or things like that, I don't get a say in how it gets resolved in a lot of times. Yeah. And I can complain about it, and sometimes they'll fix it, but most of them just have to deal with their bullshit. And
their automatic voice messaging systems.
Automatic voice messaging systems.
Because it's cheaper than a human, but can't solve anything.
Yeah. And that's, corporations cause more problems for younger generations than the government does. Older generations dealt with the government when they were younger, because that was the only real hurdle in their way. For us, now it's, oh, you want to make YouTube videos? Guess what? Oh, you want to use some music? Just like a little clip of it, because that's fair use and stuff. Copyright strike by a random company that doesn't actually have rights to that music, but they're going to do it anyways. And what is YouTube going to do? Jack shit. And then Amazon, oh, you want free market? Too bad. We're going to step in the way and just completely wipe out all free market. Yeah. Okay, we should move on. We've been talking about this for way too long. This has gone way off like the religious, non-religious, and having a discussion. This is just we're both on the same page.
We were, It's not just also religious stuff. It's political stuff. Yeah. So
the moral of the story is fuck boomers.
Wow. No.
No. Boomerism is not a generation. It's a mindset.
Wow. Still no.
Sorry.
I guess since we're on the subject of political stuff, should we talk where we stand politically, like on a spectrum? If you can put yourself on a spectrum, I can.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I'm a super far left libertarian.
I am a from center leaning left leaning libertarian, according to several political compass stuff.
Which is funny because you told me you were conservative when I
first
met you.
Yeah. So growing up, I thought I was the most conservative of conservatives, like the holy child that was going to bring redemption to every person What? I'm making an example. That's how it felt. And then I got into college, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I believe more like middle of the road people.
That's funny you're saying that, because I've had the same experience. I thought I was my entire family thought we were super conservative, and then as we went on and learned more about politics, we're like, oh, actually, we're pretty liberal. It's just that we thought that we were just sane conservatives while everyone else around us was batshit insane conservative.
Yeah. And then moving out of my parents' house and for work and to another region in Utah, I feel like the most far left-wing nut they've ever met at times.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And it's, and it's probably because I've learned with some of them that, because we've never talked about it in depth, it's just like quick little one-liners of beliefs where there's no discussion with that. They're actually some are more centralized than that. But yeah, growing up, I thought I was a conservative, and I think most through college, I still tried to like hold on to that. I was like, because this is what I am. And then the more and more I learned, I'm like, no, I'm not. Which is really funny because if you're, I would say, well, it used to be more like this. If you were more centralized in Utah, you'd consider yourself a Democrat.
Yeah.
And even though to the rest of the country, if you lived anywhere else, you would be a centrist or moderate. And
to the rest of the world, you'd be a conservative.
Yeah, and to the rest, you'd be a conservative. And so then when you actually get, like people who are, claim to be Democrats in Utah, they're more middle of the road, used to be. You actually now have actual people who are left that are Democrats in the state. I mean,
which is good.
Yeah,
we need to swing this thing.
4th district of Salt Lake City is blue for the first time ever.
Really?
Yeah, it flipped blue this last election.
Oh yeah, I think I did hear about that.
So we've got, out of our 5 representatives, 4 red, 1 is blue. So
isn't that Ben McAdams?
I think it's a girl. I don't know. It's been almost a year. It has been a year.
2 years almost. Since the midterms?
Oh yeah, midterms, 2 years. Yeah. No, because we're not voting.
Oh yeah, it was a year. I'm sorry, I forgot that I voted during my first real semester of college.
I know it's where my parents live. It's city votes right now. So for this November 8th election,
I should vote in that. I think my town's having it too.
Yeah. So but it's so funny, just all of that. It's like I thought I was one way, and then learning that no, I'm actually not. I'm, because of the surrounding area, it's you think one way, and then you start realizing no, I'm not. And my parents went through the same thing. It was like, oh no, we're Republican and all this. And also the other stupid thing is, to do anything in the state, you have to be registered as a Republican to do a lot of stuff.
Wait, what?
So, like in the government. So like if you want to get involved, like in college, I was involved with student government. I was a senator at my college, and we did a lot of stuff with the actual Senate of the state. So we were up on Capitol Hill a lot, and this. So I at the time was a registered Republican, and
I cannot picture you as that at all.
Well, it was just a card with a little initial on it, and so I was, involved in a bunch of stuff, and I went to a Republican meeting for an election, and kind of the conventions they do, and there was a bill being passed that no longer allowed people from the independent party or third parties to participate in the Republican convention.
I remember you talking about this.
And I was like, well, that's not right.
No, it is not.
And I'm like,
did you talk to anyone about it? Who was there?
I voted nay. But so they did that, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go over to the Democratic convention now. Well, at that time, the same thing happened. And so you had a very small minority of people who actually registered independent now had no say in anything.
That just sounds so weird.
That would have been the Romney Obama election. Was that
That was 2012.
So I kind of got screwed out because the start of both conventions voted to no longer let third parties in. And so I went out and changed to third party. But then so I'm a registered independent.
You still on?
Yeah, still on.
Are you going to vote in the caucuses this year? Or next year?
I can only vote in the Democratic one. The Republican one is still closed to independents. So I might. I've never done a caucus vote. I was in 2012 going to, but then I got shot out.
Yeah.
So I might. It depends.
Hey, we should both go and vote for Bernie Sanders, like America deserves.
Sure.
Oh, come on. Yang's not going to make it.
I'm not pulling for Yang.
Who are you pulling for?
I don't know yet.
Oh.
So
it better not be Buttigieg, or else I will disown you.
I don't even know who that is, so...
Pete Buttigieg?
No.
Mayor Pete?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, politically, I have voted for 6 Republicans in my entire life out of 3 presidential rounds of elections. And there would have been 3 midterms and then 3, small city votes.
So then the rest have gone Democrat?
Yep, or independents, third parties. So out of, 18 rounds of voting, 6. And there's, some of them have 20 people on them. So, it's just, yeah. So, it's interesting.